There are 118 cards in Clash Royale, and today I am ranking every single one of them. But wait, that's not all. I'll also be dividing the cards into 5 categories: unplayable, situational, balanced, meta-defining, and broken. We will start with the worst cards in the unplayable category and move our way up to the best cards in the broken category. So let's start with the unplayable category. The cards in this category are basically so bad that they don't really fit into any sort of deck. These cards have bad stats and provide absolutely no value. Starting off the unplayable category at number 118, we have the Goblin Hut. There's nothing much to be said about this card except it's absolutely trash. Next, at number 117, we have the Barbarian Hut. Another spawner, another horrible card. Coming in at number 116, it's the Clone Spell. The Clone Spell is totally useless nowadays. It provides no value and gets countered by basically everything. At number 115, we have the Furnace. Well, it's a spawner, so you can't really expect anything else. Taking the spot at number 114, we have the Three Musketeers. This trio hasn't been good in a long time, and I also don't see them being viable in the future anytime soon. Next up at number 113, we have the Mirror. Yeah, no one's using the Mirror anymore, now that we have the Royal Chef in game. Coming in at number 112, we have the Rascals. They are terrible. The only thing that might make them decent is if the Rascal girls don't die to the log. At number 111, we have the Minion Horde. As long as arrows remain in the meta, this card is never going to be good. Moving on to number 110, we have the Skeleton Army. The card is just a walking negative elixir trade, to be honest. There are just so many better alternatives out there. Taking the 109th spot, we have the Void Spell. Void was only good for the first month it was released. After that, it just faded into irrelevance. Next up at number 108, we have the Elite Barbarians. Gone are the days when people used to fear the Elite Barbarians. Now, they're just so easy to counter. Coming in at number 107, we have the Giant Skeleton. This card actually used to be quite good, but in today's fast-paced meta, the Giant Skeleton fails to keep up. At number 106, we have the Barbarians. Despite getting an evolution, I don't think Barbarians are viable in any deck. Even Lava Hound decks have stopped using them. They just give too much spell value. Moving on to number 105, we have the Goblin Curse. It's more of a surprise factor card, but there is no need for it, considering it works 1 in 100 times. Taking the 104th spot in the list, we have the Tombstone. The poor Tombstone feels underwhelming now compared to the Cannon and the Goblin Cage. In fact, you'll actually be quite surprised when I reveal the rankings of these two cards. Next up at number 103, we have the Suspicious Bush. The bush is pretty irrelevant because most of the time it'll never reach the tower and just ends up getting logged away. Coming in at number 102, we have the Witch. Now, many of you might disagree with me here, but the truth is that the Witch is really bad for a 5 elixir card. She's slow, deals minimal damage, and offers too much spell value. At number 101, as the final unplayable card, we have the Wizard. Similar to the Witch, the Wizard provides negative value for his cost. His stats are just not good for 5 elixir. The next category of cards is situational. These cards are not that good, but still work well in certain situations. They are quite matchup dependent, so you can't rely on them too much. So kicking off the situational category at number 100, we have the Sparky. The issue with Sparky is that she takes way too long to shoot, and your opponent can easily counter her. She only works well countering a few decks like minor wall breakers, but against others, she's absolutely garbage. Taking the 99th spot, we have the Battle Ram. It hardly ever gets a connection on the tower, and if your opponent has a building, you're cooked. Next up, at number 98, we have the Elixir Collector. People hate this card for its bad game design. I hate it because it's entirely useless against all decks that run a big spell. Coming in at number 97, we have the Skeleton Barrel. The card is okay in certain bait decks, but let's be real, it's quite weak on its own. At number 96, we have the Battle Healer. It used to work well with Elixir Golem, but as the archetype declined, Battle Healer fell out of the meta too. Now, it's only used with a few Golem decks. Moving on to number 95, we have the Goblin Demolisher. The last time a Goblin Demolisher connected to my tower, I didn't even have any subs on YouTube. Speaking of that, now would be a great time to hit the like and subscribe button. Taking the 94th spot, we have the Expo. Honestly, I feel bad for Expo players. They just can't seem to get an Expo lock anymore. Next up, at number 93, we have the Elixir Golem. Often termed as the most no-skilled card, you definitely need skill to win with the Elixir Golem nowadays. Yeah, it's that bad. Coming in at number 92, we have the Archers. People like this card, but it's not good at the moment, considering the popularity of arrows in the meta. At number 91, we have the Inferno Tower. The Inferno Tower is just too expensive for a building. People prefer a lot of faster decks these days, and Inferno Tower just doesn't fit in any deck other than classic Logbait. Moving on to number 90, we have the P.E.K.K.A. Honestly, the downfall of P.E.K.K.A. needs to be studied. A couple of months back, it was the most broken card in Clash Royale, but now it's fallen off so badly that no one uses it anymore. Not gonna lie, but it's kind of a relief to not see the P.E.K.K.A. anymore. Taking the 89th spot, we have the Freeze spell. It works in only certain situations and with certain cards like Balloon or Graveyard. Otherwise, it's no good. Next up, at number 88, we have the Baby Dragon. The Baby Dragon is good with Splash Yard, but honestly, I've never seen it being used with any other deck nowadays. Coming in at number 87, we have the Electro Dragon. If this was an evolution tier list, this card would be much higher, but it only works well with Golem and absolutely sucks in any other archetype. At number 86, we have the Ice Golem. While this 2 elixir tank is quite useful, it's nowhere game-changing on its own. You'll only see 2.6 Hog Cycle players using it, really. Moving on to number 85, we have the Mother Witch. I personally hate this card, because she counters my graveyard deck. Against every other deck, she's horrible. Taking the spot at number 84, we have the Minions. The regular Minions are only a bit better than the Minion Horde, but they still fail to provide much value in decks other than Lava Loon. Next up at number 83, we have the Mega Minion. It's good, but is it good enough to replace cards like Phoenix or Flying Machine? Definitely not. Spoiler alert, the Flying Machine's ranking is actually quite controversial further on in the list. Coming in at number 82, we have the Wall Breakers. The regular Wall Breakers are decent and do force out a response sometimes, but more than often, they are just a waste of elixir. At number 81, we have the Golden Knight. Ranking a champion this low feels weird, but the Golden Knight just sucks right now, and even his ability is not that useful. He's definitely the weakest champion in the game currently. I'd love to see a buff to this Golden Head champion. Moving on, at number 80, we have the Zap. The Zap has been completely overshadowed by arrows and log, and is no longer used in 99% of the decks. Taking the 79th spot, we have the Bomb Tower. It's a decent building, good enough to counter Royal Hogs, but against any other win condition, it just won't provide enough defensive value. As our final card in the Situation category, we have what might be the most controversial ranking of this list. At number 78, we have the Mega Knight. I know, this may trigger a lot of you, but the regular Mega Knight is nowhere as good as its evolution. It's easy to counter, and often it ends up giving a positive elixir trait to your opponent. If this was an evolution list, the Mega Knight would probably be near the top, but since it's not, the Mega Knight is our last situational card in this ranking. Next, we have the Balanced category. In this category, we'll talk about the cards that are actually quite balanced and still provide great value. So, starting off the Balanced category, at number 77, we have the Princess. Thank goodness for the latest rework. It's finally a balanced card now that you can catch her on the bridge. Moving on, at number 76, we have the Goblin Barrel. The regular Goblin Barrel is quite balanced, I'd say. It's not overpowered, but still allows for some great plays. Taking the 75th spot, we have the Mini P.E.K.K.A. One of my favorite cards, the Mini P.E.K.K.A. is great for destroying tanks, but because of its slow hit speed, it's very easy to counter. Next up, at number 74, we have the Tesla. The regular Tesla has been replaced by the Cannon as the best building in the game, although many players still use the Tesla since it's a reliable counter to air troops as well. Coming in at number 73, we have the Goblin Machine. Who could forget when it was broken on launch? Now it remains quite balanced in the meta. At number 72, we have the Cannon Cart. A really underrated card, I would say. It's actually quite broken in certain matchups like Expo. Moving on, at number 71, we have the Executioner. The Executioner is quite good with Balloon and Hog Rider decks, but nowadays he finds himself being outclassed by the Musketeer. Okay, so this next ranking is a bit surprising, but yeah, taking the 70th spot in the rankings, we have the Healed Spirit. I mean, it does have the highest win percentage in the game with 61%, but it's really more so because of the broken decks it's used in evolution and not really because of the card itself. In my opinion, those decks would work fine even without the Heal Spirit. Coming in at number 69, we have the Berserker. After the recent balance changes, I think the Berserker is finally a balanced card. For 2 Elixir, she now has the perfect stats and provides decent value. Next up at number 68, we have the Zappies. I've been using this card recently and I think it's quite useful. More players should start using it for real. At number 67, we have the Golem. The mighty Golem is no longer the beast he once was, but he still packs a punch. To be very honest, I'd love to see the return of a Golem meta. Moving on at number 66, we have the Mighty Miner. The Mighty Miner is decent in Lockbait and Hog Rider decks, although he is becoming more easy to counter day by day. Taking the 65th spot, we have the Skeleton King. He is great with Graveyard and some Royal Giant decks, yet he remains just another champion who doesn't get the spotlight often. The main reason for that is the popularity of Archer Queen and Goblinstein, whom we'll talk about further in this video. Much further than you're thinking right now. Next up at number 64, we have the Electro Wizard. The recent buff has made him a lot more viable, and I'm excited to use him again. Coming in at number 63, we have the Mortar. The regular Mortar is not as overpowered as the Evolution Mortar by any means, but it's still a great defensive tool. At number 62, we have the Snowball. It's a good 2 Elixir spell, but without its evolved version, people would much rather use arrows over it. Moving on, at number 61, we have the Lumberjack. While the Lumberjack Evolution might be the most broken card in-game, the regular Lumberjack isn't just as good. I mean, he's okay, but people are mainly using him because of his evolved version. Taking the 60th spot, we have the Little Prince, one of the most annoying cards in the game. The Little Prince only got more powerful because of the Rune Giant, whom we're going to talk about very soon. Next up, at number 59, we have the Firecracker. As annoying as it is to counter, it's being kept in check because of how popular arrows are in the meta. Coming in at number 58, we have the Goblin Giant. He's mean, he's green, and he's quite good if you pair him with the right cards. At number 57, we have the Fire Spirit. The recent buff definitely helped the card, as it's being seen more and more in new decks every day. Moving on, at number 56, we have the Phoenix. Now, the Phoenix is a really great card because of its spell-resistant nature. If you're a mid-ladder player, definitely consider using the Phoenix. Taking the 55th spot in the list, we have the Monk. The Monk can be really annoying to deal with at times, especially if you don't have the right counters. One reason why I really like the Monk is because of how he hard counters the Archer Queen. Next up at number 54, we have the Ram Rider. The Ram Rider has definitely fallen off a bit in the last few months, but I feel like it's still irritating to some extent, and somehow always gets the charging hit at the last possible second. Coming in at number 53, we have the Royal Delivery. It's one of my favorite cards to use, and it provides insane value in so many situations. At number 52, we have the Bats. Being a 2 Elixir card, they provide a lot of value. Even if you leave their evolved version out of the equation, they're still great on defense and applying pressure. Moving on, at number 51, we have the Bandit. Bridge spam decks have been seeing a rise recently, and the Bandit remains a really important card to them. As our last card in the balanced category, at number 50, we have the Hunter. On top of his evolution being absolutely game-breaking, the regular Hunter is also a great card. He's great at countering both air and ground tanks, and has decent HP to survive spells, making him a reliable defensive option. Now we enter the meta-defining category. The cards in this category are extremely strong, and the entire meta revolves around them a lot. Taking the 49th spot in our rankings are the Royal Recruits. Considered as the most no-skill card by pros, the Royal Recruits have definitely been way too strong in the last few months. They are incredibly easy to use, and their evolved version is just very difficult to defend as well. Next up, at number 48, we have the Electro Giant. The Electro Giant is slowly but surely rising in popularity. With Lightning so strong in the meta currently, the Electro Giant is a force to be reckoned with. Coming in at number 47, we have the Rocket. Everyone hates the Rocket. The reason? Because no one likes to get spell cycled throughout the game. At number 46, we have the Dart Goblin. It's so annoying that I don't even have words for it. And don't even get me started on his evolved version. Moving on, at number 45, we have the Rune Giant. Despite receiving a nerf in the latest balance changes, the Rune Giant still remains strong because of her broken card concept. Taking the 44th spot, we have the Hog Rider. The Hog Rider is strong, fast, and reliable. all qualities that make him a great card. Next up at number 43, we have the Dark Prince. As Goblin Drill and Royal Hogs become more popular in the game, Dark Prince finally got his time to shine. Not gonna lie, I'm really happy that Dark Prince is finally getting the recognition he deserved for so long. Coming in at number 48, we have the Fisherman. He's really versatile on both offense and defense, making him a great card to counter popular win conditions. At number 41, we have the Goblin Drill. Even the unevolved version of the drill is really strong. You can never ignore a drill coming towards your tower, and you often end up spending more than necessary to defend it. Moving on at number 40, we have the Musketeer. The Musketeer is just so reliable that you can fit her in almost any deck, and she will synergize really well. She's easy to use and provides so much value against beatdown pushes and countering air troops. Taking the 39th spot, we have the Night Witch. Now, this may come as quite shocking, but the Night Witch actually has a 53% win rate currently in game. She's a valuable card in giant graveyard decks, which are absolutely dominating the game currently. Next up at number 38, we have the Electro Spirit. I would say the Electro Spirit is really good to counter the Night Witch's bats and reset units. It's being used a lot in Royal Giant and Royal Recruits deck. Coming in at number 37, we have the Goblin Gang. It's just a much better version of the Skeleton Army and is great for baiting out any kind of small spells. At number 36, we have the Earthquake. As Cannon is the most popular building in the game currently, the Earthquake is a must-have in your deck since it destroys the cannon instantly. Moving on at number 35, we have the Bowler. The Bowler is often seen as a really annoying card on defense. If you don't have the right counters, you're in for a rough time against the Bowler. Taking the 34th spot, we have the Royal Ghost. I consider the Royal Ghost as the most underrated card in Clash Royale. It's great for forcing out specific cards and will always provide value. Next up at number 33, we have the Skeleton Dragons. Mainly used with Lava Hound, the Skeleton Dragons are another underrated card which people should really try out more. Coming in at number 32, we have the Balloon. Both Lava Loon and Balloon Cycle are incredibly strong decks right now. The Balloon itself is a tough card to defend, and even a single hit from the Balloon deals massive damage. At number 31, we have the Prince. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I absolutely hate the Prince. He's just way too strong with the Giant right now. Moving on at number 30, we have the Fireball. The Fireball is just the perfect card in so many situations. Whether you're dealing with the annoying Flying Machine or Royal Hogs, Fireball is your savior. Taking the 29th spot in our rankings, we have the Knight. As we all know, the Knight has great stats for its cost. This makes him one of the best mini tanks to pair with anything in the game. Next up at number 28, we have the Spear Goblins. They're cheap and reliable, making them a great card to distract your opponent's troops or apply a little pressure. Coming in at number 27, we have the Valkyrie. I think the Valkyrie is slightly better than the Knight right now because of how popular Royal Hogs are in the game. Since she counters them really well, more players are using the Valkyrie than ever. At number 26, finally, we have the Flying Machine. Now, I know this ranking might be a bit controversial, but hear me out. Flying Machine is an absolutely broken card in so many scenarios. In fact, most of the time it will annoy the heck out of your opponent and win you games single-handedly. Flying Machine is a card that requires a very specific response, like a Fireball. If your opponent is lacking that counter, they're absolutely cooked. Moving on, at number 25, we have the Ice Wizard. The Ice Wizard has seen a rise lately because of how good he is against the Goblinstein, about whom we'll discuss later in this video. I like the Ice Wizard, and it's irreplaceable in decks like Splashyard. Taking the 24th spot, we have the Royal Giant. This big fella's getting stronger with every passing meta. Preferred by the pros, the Royal Giant is perhaps the most reliable win condition of all time. Next up at number 23, we have the Goblins. For only 2 elixir, you can defend almost any mini tank, counter graveyard and miner, and apply offensive pressure as well. Goblins have been consistently strong in the last year since they fit in almost any deck. Coming in at number 22, we have the Bomber. The ability to deal with swarms for only 2 elixir and then counter push is what makes Bomber a really strong card. As our final meta-defining card, at number 21, we have the Magic Archer. This card is just so great at catching your opponent off guard at the bridge. Oftentimes, he will actually act as the main condition of your deck. Now, as we finally arrive at the broken category, there's one thing you need to remember. While some cards mentioned in this category are broken because of their stats, others are broken because of how versatile they are. But the common thing between them is that these cards are just so strong right now that a nerf to any of them wouldn't even come off as a surprise. So, kicking off the broken category at number 20, we have the Goblin Cage. The cage is just an incredibly versatile building. Not only does the cage provide defensive value, the Goblin Brawler also adds a counter-push threat. Next up at number 19, we have the Guards. Without doubt, the best defensive swarm card in the game. Guards are great on defense for one single reason. They don't die to arrows, and that's enough to justify this ranking for them. Coming in at number 18, we have the Rage Spell. The Rage Spell just complements the Giant decks so well that it's basically impossible to stop a Giant plus Rage push nowadays. At number 17, we have the Barbarian Barrel. It's used with Royal Giant, Recruits, Balloon Splash Yard decks, and just so many more. A card that's so versatile deserves a ranking as high as this for sure. Moving on, at number 16, we have the Royal Hogs. I don't even remember the last time Royal Hogs weren't meta. It seems like this win condition can just never die. All the top players play Royal Hog because this card has the tendency to beat even the hardest of matchup. Taking the 15th spot, we have the Inferno Dragon. Considering Giant and Lava Hound are everywhere, the Inferno Dragon is a much needed card in decks these days. Next up at number 14, we have the Archer Queen. Another great counter to almost any win condition. Her ability provides so much value as she can take down entire pushes by herself. Coming in at number 13, we have the Ice Spirit. Its freeze mechanic is just so useful on defense, and the fact that it costs only 1 elixir for that much value is just insane. At number 12, we have the Poison Spell. It's reliable and is needed to counter the popularity of Graveyard. It pairs well with the Miner mostly, but to be honest, you can just throw it in almost any deck and it will still work. Taking the 11th spot and just missing out on the top 10, we have the Lava Hound. This majestic flying beast is like the kryptonite to all popular decks. No wonder it always gets a great top ladder finish consistently. Finally, kicking off our top 10, we have the Giant. It's just unstoppable right now, and in my opinion, it deserves a nerf. It's just so tanky and deals such heavy damage that it almost feels unfair at this point. Moving on, at number 9 we have the Cannon. Without doubt, it's the best building in the game. It's cheap, deals great damage, and counters the Goblinstein really well. The Cannon has never been in a better spot than it is in right now. Taking the number 8 spot in our list, we have the Arrows. The Arrows would probably be top 3 in this list, but the recent nerf was quite impactful. Yet, they remain a must-have in your deck to counter cards like Firecracker and Goblin Barrel. Next up, at number 7, we have the Lightning. This is definitely the best big spell in the game. Royal Giant, Electro Giant, and Regular Giant decks are all benefiting from Lightning so much that it currently has a 12% usage rate with a godly 58% win rate. Coming in at number 6, we have the Graveyard. The RNG factor of the Graveyard has always been a topic of controversy in the community, and it has become even more annoying to deal with considering the rise of Graveyard in the meta. The card gets almost guaranteed damage to the tower, which is really frustrating to deal with. At number 5 on our list, we have the Tornado. King Tower activations are more important than ever in today's meta, and the Tornado is the only card that can provide you with those consistently. It's basically irreplaceable and will continue to remain as one of the top cards in the game forever. Moving on, at number 4, we have the Skeletons. For just 1 elixir, you get the ability to cycle cards quicker, counter multiple cards, and take critical hits from heavy damage dealing troops. Do I need to say more? Okay, now the top 3. I'm excited. Ranked 3rd in our list, we have the Miner. Perhaps the most versatile troop of all time. There is no card like the Miner. He can attack directly at the enemy's tower, he can defend against mini-tanks, he can take out troops trying to destroy your push, and the list just keeps going on and on. Is there anything the Miner can't do? At number 2, as the second best card in the game, we have the mighty Log. The Log just got a big nerf, and still, it's the best spell in the game. No amount of nerfs can make the Log truly irrelevant because the card just provides insane value. It can clear swarms, push back troops, and even reset charging hits, all just for 2 elixir. Finally, taking the crown as the number 1 card in Clash Royale, we have the Goblinstein. The card in itself is such a broken concept that I don't know how it even made it to the game. Goblinstein is absolutely broken. One thing we learned from ranking these cards is that some cards are truly underrated, while some others are overrated like crazy. If you want to know which cards I'm talking about, click on this video.